Hi, my name is Alex. I am been out of the group a little bit, but I am group 7. It looks like that's this week I was only able to meet by myself, and we were able to work it out with me. And so, group number 7 is responsible this week on what is a sale of approval. And so today I'm going to go over that real quick. Our example is this. So there's a new shipment of televisions from China that arrived at Best Buy. And as agreed upon, the store would purchase all the working televisions. And so after inspection, it was found that only one of the entire lot was working. So what happens? Well, the entire lot, except for that one that is working, is returned back at the seller's expense to be repaired or etc. The seller, it was still liable even though he didn't even have the televisions. Even though they were across the entire world, he was still liable. And this is because it didn't receive his approval. The buyer didn't approve of it. However, he did approve of that one TV as working, and so he kept that one and he became responsible for that one TV. A sale approval is used as a term to describe a transaction to get most goods to arrive safely. It's used best for sellers. It's for the benefit of sellers and for the benefit of the buyer to make sure that you're getting enough for your product. So implementing this technique by placing shipping and its safe arrival on the seller makes it more likely to have a good product arrive at your shipping office or at your office. This reminded me of something I learned in history, that during the slave trade, many Africans died on the voyage from Africa to North America from starvation, dehydration, and disease. What would happen was the slave drivers, or those that bought the slaves, would order 200 slaves, and they would get on the boat, and when they got off the boat, there was only 120, and the people would say, "I'm sorry, 80 of them died," and they would pay up as if they paid for 200. Now, this wasn't fair to the slave people because they would have to overestimate, and then this wasn't fair for the slaves. Slavery isn't fair in the first place, but then dying because you're about to become a slave isn't fair. And so during that time, the English established a new law, a business law, to fix this growing problem. And it would be enacted. Now, this change in the slave trade, this law, would be that the purchase of slaves would be on terms of a sale of approval. This means that whenever slaves were on the boat, that whatever slaves were on the boat at the time of shipment, so when they arrived to America, so if there was 50 of them, they would buy 50. If there was 100, they would buy 100. If there's 200, they would buy 200. And then they would be approved if they were healthy enough to be purchased, for those to be paid of. So because of this, they had all these slaves no longer dying because the people had to take care of them. Because if they bought 200 and they know that the only way they're going to get their money is if they bring 200 over, they had to make sure that they stayed healthy. They couldn't just rip them off and say 50 or 60, because that wouldn't pay the bills. And so they would have to feed them, they would have to get them water, and they would get them medicine. And so this improved actually the entire economy because there was more slaves introduced into North America. So the question I wanted to pose for the group was, a shipment of televisions arrived at a local electronics store. Upon examination, they found that nearly half were damaged. The undamaged half remained, while the damage was sent back to the seller at his expense. This form of sale approval resulted in all of the following, but what? And so I'll first tell you what it resulted in. The first thing it resulted in is that the buyer was able to the buyer received the goods that he wanted. I gotta just retype that. Received the goods that he wanted. He was protected, and the reason he was protected is because he was able to approve of it before he got it. The second answer, or the thing that also caused this, was this causes the seller to rethink his method of shipping. For him to find to have the best way, for him to get a profit the best way, he needs to have his product protected. And so sometimes he might have to ship it. For example, if it's something that needs to be refrigerated, like let's say a human organ, like a heart, it would probably need to be airlifted with a person attached to it with the handcuffs on it. Or if it wasn't that way, it could be somewhere in the Atlantic or in the Pacific on a boat just rotting away. And so we can see that a heart worth probably $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 would have a different shipping method than something else. Now that gets to my other answer, is that my wrong answer, or right answer in this case, it would cause the buyer to inspect all high-priced merchandise for defects before approving them. This is what I've been learning in accounting with inventory and with auditing, is that you inspect and audit things that are coming in if it's worth inspecting. So for example, if it was pencils, out of 1,000, maybe 24, 36 are broken. By themselves, pencils of that little broken are okay. However, if we're going to do thousands of cars or thousands of laptops or thousands of TVs and 12 or 24 are broken, that's a significant number, and that would need to be addressed through auditing. And that's why we find it worthwhile to have auditors in that position. And so the correct answer, or the wrong answer, is for the buyer to assume responsibility after accepting the shipment. By acknowledging a sale of approval and its rights for you as a buyer, you're able to understand that if you buy a broken product, you can return it. And that's what I have for you today, and hope that you enjoyed, and hope to talk to you soon.